Hello, you all look very tired.
Hi everyone, my name is Kausar, and this is a moment of great excitement and sort of a privilege for me because Gauri happens to be my closest friend, and today I'm sitting here in the capacity, it's a dual capacity, where because I'm her friend, I know things about her that only I can ask. And also because I have a great admiration for her work as a writer and a filmmaker, and I've had the honor of being attached in a very small capacity in her first film English, but in a slightly more in-depth capacity in her next film Dear Zindagi, where I did the lyrics. So I'm just putting the disclaimer as to why I am here. Now let us get down to the work, that why we are here. And I took my cue from the byline that was on the schedule, which said the journey of a filmmaker. So let's start there. A girl with curly hair, full of, I suppose, excitement and dreams and passion, makes her way from Pune to Mumbai. Now, geographically speaking, it may seem like a very short distance, but it is worlds apart. How did you make that journey? How did you navigate that way?
Yeah, and when you say curly hair, I've never not been very comfortable with it as a younger person, and I wish I knew only then that it would be a very cool thing when I grow up. And thankfully it is now, so I've loved it. Which is also a very important part to accept, I think, because she mentioned this. Accept who you are, be comfortable in your own skin, and which happens only like after some time. You realize that, you know, at the age you are, that you're so confident. I wish I was like this like 20 years ago. But anyway, so with my hair and everything, I came to Bombay. I think through school and college, somehow Bombay always held this attraction that it was this very free-spirited, free space where you could be this independent person, and somehow that was always a yearning to want to explore more. I was not very sure what, but to want to see the world beyond Pune, which was kind of a small town then while I was growing up, and whatever could take me there. I had this idea that I'd be a businesswoman because that's what my mom was, my dad was, and without knowing what it is, but I knew that I'm going to be in charge of things and I want to do some kind of business, and that's how, and somehow it was Bombay. So it has been one very, that kind of dream without knowing what. And my dad actually introduced me in one of the summers in my college when I really wanted to do something like work at a pizza joint or something. He said, I'll tell you something better. Let me introduce you to advertising. Why don't you do a 2-month internship or something? And that's how I got introduced to that. And I said, oh, this seems exciting. I can write. So copywriting is a department in advertising. And that's what I trained in. I worked part-time along with my college also because I liked it so much. And then I knew what I was coming to Bombay for, to join advertising. So it didn't happen by accident, like most people in advertising land up there by accident. It was by design and by great encouragement by my parents. In fact, 21 or something, 20, I moved to Bombay with another friend of mine, and my dad actually came to drop us both. She and me shared a flat in front, 2 other girls, and that's how we landed there. And I looked for a job, found one, and that's how Bombay began for me.
As a young woman, to make that move from your hometown to a completely new, big, a jungle of a city, weren't there any fears? And how did you overcome those fears?
Actually, I realized that I was quite fearless back then. In fact, now I have all kinds of fears of, new fears come up. Then it was only about, will I find the right job and will I make enough money to be able to live on my own and not ask my parents for any money. And actually that's the last time I ever took money from them for that rent of that house that we had taken up. And till date, I didn't need to ask. And for that, for me, was very, very important to be financially independent. So my fear then was only about getting a job that would pay for rent, food, and basic fun. So very important. And now I have all kinds of fears which I didn't imagine then. Is like this for me is a big fear, sitting on stage and being able to speak, because I'm very well and very confident behind the camera and doing the work that I really do, and no one can sort of scare me there. So not even the biggest star, but here, this, I mean, all of us have some fears, and this I feel is not my forte. I'm just a filmmaker, I'm a writer. Leave me alone in that space. But yes, because this topic, this theme is important, you force yourself, you brace yourself and say, okay, I will talk. And Neeta managed to do that with me, so I'm here. And she's here, so it's comfortable. So yeah.
But speaking of fears, I mean, let me just take this a little bit further. Do you think, and because this is the Woman Up Summit, do you think being a woman has something to do with it, or it's a personality thing? Because very often as women, you are kind of conditioned, and it is hundreds of years of conditioning, to kind of stay a little, one step behind, which is a good thing, to let your work speak for itself. But especially in the modern context, well, you should also speak for yourself. So do you think being a woman has something to do with that?
It could be, because I think we have a very natural tendency, and it's such a subconscious thing, and I'm realizing it as, over time, that we have a tendency to step back instead of step forward. With most things, you always want to let someone else, like, aap pehle khao, aap pehle andar jao, and all that. So somehow it has seeped in that someone else has to do something. If you give them a chance, then you yourself take that step forward. So yes, I think it could be a little bit of that. And it's like, for example, like even in like at a workplace, I think what you're talking about, is I did this, for instance, in my second film. And there were all these big people involved, including Balki, who happens to be my husband, and Karan Johar, and all these people. And somehow I realized this in retrospect, that some big decisions, I knew, like where my script is concerned, my casting and all those are my calls, and I'm not going to let anyone, and I'm like a kind of a tigress there, a soft tigress. And but like some big decisions like promotions or something, and I would take a step back and say, no, you guys decide, you all know better. And then when you do that, you actually let someone else have that power, because you're giving it. And then when it didn't gel with my opinion, I couldn't agree with the decisions taken, and then I would be disturbed by it. I was not able to, then when you finally realize you already gave that power, and you took that step back. So you have to be there, own it, even if it's scary, and even if it means that you could be wrong, but to be there, which is what I did, like let someone else actually decide, imagining that those are bigger things which I may not know enough about, but it's my goddamn film, I better know, and even if I don't, let me learn about it and be there and share this decision on an equal footing.
Let's just backtrack a little bit. So when you came to Bombay and you got into advertising, and we've been hearing, we touched upon it a little bit right now, and we've been hearing this term all afternoon in the Big Boys Club. So advertising certainly happens to be that. So how did a 20-something-year-old girl make her way through it, and then now as we speak, we'll come to your feature filmmaking career in a bit, but you are now over, I don't know, 100 advertising films, you've made them. How did you know that, okay, this is where I want to be and this is where I will survive and thrive? Because it is a very competitive and a very cutthroat and a very commerce-driven industry.
I actually just, I don't know, I have this streak. Even when I moved, I just assumed that, I mean, I never thought of myself as a woman. I just thought I have to do well and I have to do this. So I didn't let the environment, even if it's today that one is so conscious of, oh, you're a woman in a man's world kind of a thing. I never thought like that. I just took it so much for granted because it's somehow in my subconscious that I just want to do well, or I like doing this, and this is what I'm going to do my best in this place. So that's how I just went about it. It didn't even strike me. All I ever wondered, like my first ad and my first PPM, which is a pre-production meeting with a client where you present how you're going to be making this commercial, this advertising piece, is I found myself wearing zero number glasses and thought I should just be taken a little seriously. So those are the little things that I wanted to be. And I probably could have done it as a young if I were a boy also. So I think that was a very individual thing, maybe. And there were not really many, now when I think back, and we spoke about this yesterday, that there were not many women ad film directors at the time even. They were just less than 5 or 6 maybe. And so I think that somehow maybe it had seeped in. I couldn't articulate it then, but made me put those glasses and say that I need to look serious, and like whatever I say needs to be taken seriously. And yeah, that's how I did this. But I continued assuming that that's the way it is. I didn't even want to imagine there's some divide, there's some discrimination. And in advertising, luckily, so there isn't much. So there are a lot of women working. So that, and coming to feature film industry is a slightly different ball game. It's where the boys club exists.
So coming to your feature film career, after having established yourself pretty well in the advertising industry, and I just want to, perhaps if you could talk a little bit about advertising. People think, that's a bouncing board from advertising to get to make your first big film, to get to make your feature. And sometimes, and from the feature film world side, it's looked like, she's just an advertising person. So there's that level, again, layer of discrimination. Because there are so many different layers. One, maybe you're too young, a woman, or coming from a background which is not as intense or as serious as. How did you bring the knowledge of advertising into your feature?
Yeah, when I started actually back then, whenever, like my feature, which is 2010, 2011 is where I was sort of entering this space. Not many advertising directors were doing feature films, very, very, very few, and that wasn't really a great resume to have to get into feature film. Now there are a lot more, and now it's like the norm, and in fact people are looking forward to, this person's background is advertising and maybe they'll bring in something new. But it wasn't so then. And of course with my first film, it was very difficult to actually find producers or anyone to distribute this film, because I had everything like negative going for it in terms of what sells. I was unknown, which can happen to be. It's not gender centric, because I hadn't done anything in the feature film industry. I was a woman. I had a story that was about a middle class, middle aged woman as my protagonist. She was wearing a sari, nothing very glamorous. And these were all the negatives. So it was not easy at all to find anyone to back this. And and whoever even thought of backing it said, it's Sridevi, there should be a dance number. Or you should get a big star, maybe Amitabh Bachchan should be your husband. So there were many of these suggestions, and maybe you should set up New York in India. I don't know how you do that, but so all of that, and I refused. I said either I make this film the way I've seen it and envisioned it, or I don't make it at all. So I had that going for me, thankfully, my stubbornness over that. And then we decided to do this on our own, because there really wasn't anyone willing to risk that. And we did it on our own, and we've seen the result, and I'm happy with the result. And those same people who refused, or sort of, yeah, it's a beautiful script, it's very nice, but and they wouldn't want to really face me after that. Who wanted to face me very much after the success and wanted to produce my next whatever I had thought of, and I'm saying no, thank you, because it's very easy to approach something and want to back something that has already been successful than to see potential and back that. So that requires a lot of vision and a risk-taking ability, which none of these people really had then. And,
You used the word stubborn, that you were stubborn enough to want to make your film be authentic to the script. I think I'll use a different word. I'll say that is your passion and your perhaps protectiveness towards the authenticity of that story and that film that you have decided to make. Because for a newcomer, somebody who's making their first film, they will do anything to get that film made. You know, and that is also celebrated a lot in our industry. कि मैं अपनी पहली फिल्म बनाने के लिए कुछ भी कर जाऊँगा. For you, that कुछ भी कर जाऊँगा was that I will protect this and make it, you know, the way I feel. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm, you know, saying rah women, but I think that's a very female quality. Of, you know, I think it almost comes from whether you are a mother or not, or have kids or not. It's some sort of a very primal biological sort of you know, impulse where you're protective about your product. And I see that a lot in you, because again, I know I've seen you work, whether it is English or even in Dear Zindagi, where you, like you said, Karan Johar, Balki, Shah Rukh Khan, it's your second film. So, but to be able to be on set with the Shah Rukh Khan, hear him out, and yet stick to what you want and do it in a way that, you know, it is the best decision for the film, is a very tough thing to do. How are you able to do that?
I think, and because you brought up this woman quality, I think to bring up this term of woman up, I think we don't need to man up, indeed, because what naturally one would imagine is to you don't have to be this coming on strong and, you know, with a slight ego, a slight edge to show your power or your authority. In fact, I think I just be myself. I am myself, and that's what I know how to be best. And is to use actually what those qualities that I have and use that, which is about being sensitive to my team, my actors, to even the star, and to understand where they come from, to bring people together. And I think these are qualities that women inherently have. And in fact, I feel we need, it's most advantageous to actually enhance that than trying to be like a man, or how a man would approach things. And there are men also with, you know, with very strong female energies also approach things in this manner, which is in a very sensitive manner. So that's what I would do. Like, you know, with the Shah Rukh Khan, or, you know, I mean, because he was a big male actor in the film, I would just be myself and be really kind to him and be loving, and he would respond exactly in that manner. So I think it's the way you approach people respond also in that particular manner. I didn't come to him with authority and that I know better and this is my script, this is my film. No, I would approach it like I would approach in life, how I would approach things, and which is not with an ego, which actually I don't have and I need to sometimes, but with that forward, but with my you know, my being, you know. So I'm just being that and being true to, for me, and like she said, that film is like my child, it's my baby, so I need to nurture it and feed it whatever is best for it, and I will do what it takes for that to come around, whether it's people, crew, anything, you know, location.
But, you know, there is a flip side to that, and trying to be this, you know, what we're calling nurturing quality, and I find that in myself, and I try to guard against it, that, you know, you try to please, then that attempt to please, and I think that does come from the gender that we are, you know, trying to be nice, not to be viewed as somebody who's, so strong, maybe misconstrued as being arrogant or rude, and which I feel at some, if the situation demands it, I mean, there's no problem in being that way. So that is a very kind of a thin line.
That is tricky. So you are learning all the time and actually experimenting with this, where you feel you really need to be assertive and hold your ground, and then sometimes you really need to be soft. So it is that, and it is this inherent thing of wanting to please. It does bother me as a person if someone is not really liking me. I need to get over that, and if someone doesn't like what I have to say or do, so be it. And I think as women, we you know, really need to be okay about being assertive and saying what we feel and demanding what we need or want. And even if we don't take a step forward, at least stand in our own place, not take that step back. So
Coming to the films, the work actually, do you feel that being a woman filmmaker, and people use this term a lot, the female gaze, which is different, very different from the male gaze. I find it in my work. When I listen to the great songs of great masters, and I keep hearing people saying, "Pehle ke gaane itne achhe hote the, ab nahi hote," that's a different session and a different discussion. But I find some of the lyrics are so easily we accept them in our culture, which are bordering on being harassment and stalking, and that Hasina maan jayegi kind of syndrome, and they sound very beautiful and romantic. Well, that is, I'm bringing my experience of my work, but when it comes to your work, when you're behind the camera, do you feel that when you see your film, that you are seeing things differently? Because there are very few female filmmakers, and our experience, especially of Hindi cinema, has been 90% of male filmmakers. So do you see the man differently from behind the camera? Is it you're kind of filming him differently or thinking about him differently?
I'm not thinking I'm doing anything different from how I think or behave. So for me, it's very normal. It's something that's very natural that I'm doing. So it's perhaps a third person who can observe this, like you can, and think that this is different. I mean, I know that it's different from a certain cinema. That's the only distinction I can make. But because for me, again, like I assumed that I am going to work. I assumed I'm going to do well. In the same way, I've assumed that this is how I think and this is what I'm putting out, expressing who I am and my thinking. So I don't know if I'm looking at.
I can remind you of an example of again India Zindagi. The styling of Shah Rukh Khan was very different from any film that he's ever done, and this comment came from him, which is like, I wouldn't wear this anyway, and I thought he looked really wonderful in that. So I suppose this is an example of that, seeing somebody beyond a star.
He needs more women directors. So we know how we want our men to look and how what we think is hot, and perhaps they have a different opinion of hotness.
See, that itself is refreshing to hear, style them, which is nice. Okay, I just want to know, you have many people who come up and ask that, especially young students, and I get that a lot, I know you get that a very big deal a lot. How does one, navigate their way into this industry? How do you push into this industry? Because there is a lack of any formal training or structure, or so for aspiring, well, we can't speak, I suppose, for actors and performing artists, because that's a whole different ball game, but writers or budding filmmakers, in the absence of this some sort of a structure, what would you I don't want to use the word give advice, but sort of, what do you think are the qualities that one should have?
I think the best thing is, like, suppose you want to be a writer, just write. Just keep writing. If whatever the profession you're choosing, whether it's art design, art direction, costume, anything, just keep doing that stuff and be ready for the opportunity when it presents itself. I think what people keep doing, and this is something I've not done, I've never gone knocking on doors to ask for work and say, how do I do this, and and you find your ways, you know what you want, and you just find your way to do it, keep doing it, and somehow, you want it badly enough, it really happens. And, or the other thing is to find someone who you believe in, and like we were discussing earlier, like there was this whole Guru Shishya tradition in the olden times, and someone you really trust, or who can be a mentor, and who you know. Because you can't just go knocking on doors and say, can you be my mentor? That may not happen. So, and move on from there. And I feel this like, I don't get a chance and I don't know how to enter. I think it's because you're not doing enough work yourself. I think if you do enough and that is your passion and that work is good enough, when the opportunity presents, you better have some very good writing or whatever it is to show. So I think we need to be ready if we really want to, then waste your time looking for openings and channels, because they will happen the minute you have something to display.
Do you think people have a great deal of expectations, unrealistic expectations from the film industry? It's like, everybody in their offices is just waiting for you to knock at the door and they'll present you with an opportunity. And if they don't, then you'll forever be upset with the whole world of films. Why does film, seem so easy? We wouldn't do that with an Ambani or a,
I don't know, it just seems like because it's so much for the public and, like everyone's so out there and seems like because you're seeing everyone on social media or whatever, it seems like such an accessible, though it may not be professional. I think that's probably why. But it needs to be treated in the same serious manner that you apply for a job, or you won't stalk people randomly in the restaurants or wherever, but you'll go about it the right way.
I just want to go back a little bit to something came to my mind to English. You've spoken about this earlier and said how there are traces of your mom in Shashi. So obviously that was a very important defining influence in your life, your mom.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, so is my dad, because through this movie it appeared he has this inspiration, it's been inspired from my mom and her character. But I think together what they sort of consciously, subconsciously did to me and my growing up years is what made me, put these experiences into the film. And they're not all like real experiences, it's fiction, but it's a collection of the experiences that you have, and somehow that goes in, and I think that reflects well on a certain upbringing or inspiration, I hope.
But both your main protagonists in both your films happen to be, although their worlds seem completely different. One is a middle-aged, middle-class woman who cannot speak English, and this other girl is a very young and feisty and a modern girl. With all those trappings that come with it, but they both seem to be, sort of, if I may use the word, misfits in trying to kind of fit into some definition that the world has, provided for maybe a young girl who's of marriageable age, or this older woman who, needs to be in the house and be. So is this theme of, kind of fitting in is something that?
I think so, because I think I'm always feeling like a misfit myself. I think all of us feel misfits in, maybe, I can't assume all of us. Okay, I have felt like a misfit myself in various situations and various times in life, and you are, and misfit, why? Because I think it's your own, again, insecurities and fears, and you're trying to appear a certain way, but you're actually not that, and you're this scared person inside, and that's that vulnerability that really, sort of draws me, and I think that was there in the character of Shashi in English and with Kaira in Dear Zindagi, Alia's character. And that, however confident, I mean, like Alia's character was this confident cinematographer, and she has this thing going for her, her career, she has friends, she has a house and everything, but yet she's struggling with something. And I think despite all that, we struggle with something, all of us, even if there is this whole outward display of strength and success or whatever that is, and people think, oh God, everything's good with you, what can be wrong with you, you have all this going for you, and we assume this of people, and that's not necessarily true. The strongest, most successful people do live with fears. You go back at night, and of course all of us have that, do cry in our beds, and we have all of that, and that's what really appeals to me, that then these women overcoming this, and this interiority of the human emotion, and that is of great interest to me, and how women can actually overcome this. Like if it's a housewife or it's a young professional girl, so I guess by no design of mine, but that's where I have veered with my stories.
When you yourself personally are in a tight spot, do you have any kind of personal pick-me-uppers?
Friends. Yes, I think, and women friends, I think, is a big source of wealth instead of investing in gold and diamonds, I think you should invest in women, friends, orphans. Only, I think it's a great wealth, that locker you open when you want, and have that chai, coffee, dinner, sleepover, night out, drink out, anything. And I think that can be the best pick me up. Invest in women and friends.
And coming back to the movie making, as do you have your own little rituals when it comes to preparing for a film, and or like going to set in the morning?
Yeah, I don't know. I end up tidying my room wherever I am, whether it's a hotel room or something. There's OCD for just setting things right. So I just feel that everything will be set right, maybe subconsciously that way. So even if it takes 5 more minutes, and I'm like, how is it going to matter if this towel is lying here? But I have to put it back in its place, and I have to keep even some stupid cream tube which is lying ulta. I don't know why. It's just like those things, and then have my tea. If I have not had my tea, it's it's not a good time to sing. So yeah, my crew, I think, wants to make sure that she's had her tea and she was there. I'm really such a nice person there. So yeah, those are those. Little.
Speaking of crew,
things.
I always feel that the kind of it's a little bit of a schizoid life that one leads from film to film, because when you're working on a certain film, especially for the filmmaker, because we as technicians I may be working on 2 or 3 different films at a time, whether it's lyrics or it's writing or whatever, but a filmmaker is absolutely consumed in that process, and then when it's over, it's like you feel what just happened, it's like a part of your life packed up and moved on, but you're still there. And I've seen this with you, I've seen this with other close friends, and from the outside it appears like, okay, wow, now your film is released, but you feel, oh, now it's out there, and I'm so how it, and I know it's a very kind of almost at times a painful process. Tell us something about that, because for the audience, it's far removed from that place.
Yeah, I think almost like you give birth to a child, and I'm saying almost because I don't want to assume that experience, but and you do everything you want, and then it's left home, and you're left alone, and it's all over, and you put in everything into that you've loved or nourished, all of that, and then it's time to say bye, and then you're left alone in this room wondering what the hell happened, and how to restart again. So it's a very, you use the right word, it's a very schizoid experience, and it's shocking that you still sort of stay sane. You're not completely sane as a person, most people, and which is why it's a little crazy, because you go from such height of emotions, of feeling all of it when you're shooting, and all of that, and you're going through such highs, lows, all of it, and then it's gone. It's gone only because everyone's moved on to other jobs, and that same exact family or that team that you've formed over that period of time is not there, not because they don't want to or anything, because of the way life is. And as a director, like you said, you're the only one who has seen this through from the beginning to the end. Everyone else has other jobs to move on, and you can only do one film at a time, whereas every other person can actually do more films in that period of time. So yeah, it is a crazy experience. So to stay grounded and to stay a little sane. I don't want to be entirely sane. It's not really great. But yeah, it's a tough one.
And the reason I ask that, because I know with you do not make films because you can, or now you have the means to be able to. So, I mean, I suppose there are many people who, after they're done with one, they're onto another, or sometimes simultaneously kind of working on a couple of films, because you want to tell a story when there is something to say. So before I move to soon, I've been told open it to questions. So before somebody else puts this question to you, let me ask, what next?
I don't know. I really don't know. But thoughts are formulating and something will come up. Because for me, really, like you said, it's not. It's not a. It's not a project for me, or it's not like a factory that I have to go to work and make a film. Unless, for me, it's really like, I don't know. I'm not saying this with any kind of arrogance, but it is art. Like it's only a self-expression, and if I don't have something worthwhile to express and say and share it, I don't want to do it. So I may never revisit the film. So I don't know if something worthwhile doesn't happen. And I said that even after my first film. So that's the only way I'd like to. So yeah, so even we'll all have to wait if you're looking for.
I think this is a good time to ask any questions if anyone wants to. Is there a mic to go around?
Hi. My question is, like, just you mentioned right now that whatever you create it's like your own baby. So how do you deal when there are certain constraints that are imposed on it? For example, there are political constraints. For example, what happened with Padmavati right now. So how do you deal with that as a director?
Like you deal with life itself, there are so many things that just come in the way of life and you still have to deal with it. It's exactly that. I also had constraints. I mean, when Dear Zindagi was coming out, there was a thing against Pakistani actors, and I had a Pakistani actor in my film. So you wait it out, you're patient, you are, you hope and pray. That's when you start praying, when you haven't the rest of your life. That's what you do, because not much is in your hand, and sometimes the environment that we are in, that's all you can do is hope and pray. So you just have to be patient and hope for the best, and something, if so much of your heart has gone into, because I believe in those things, that something good will come out of it. All of it may not turn out to be great, but something sure will go right, because you haven't wronged anyone really.
Hello ma'am. My question to you is, as we know Dear Zindagi subject, it's about mental illness. As a country like India, mental illness does not treat like as a disorder or something which is curable. And like, for example, it's just considered as like a taboo. So how difficult it is for you to bring that topic out in a movie which is commercial movie with the young actors to be successful commercially? Or is there any fear to feel that this is about mental depression or something like that, it might work or not, or people would understand it or not?
No, I don't have any such fears. If I want to speak about it, I have to just make sure, the only fear I have is, am I writing well or not? Am I making this film well or not? Because that's the only nervousness or fear that comes in, is in that. It's not about, I don't have any fear of the subject. I don't worry about that. As far as the film is going to be engaging, and it will engage and entertain, which are the principles of any cinematic, putting a commercial thing out there. So that's all. I have not really, and I feel, when I feel strongly about a subject, which I do about this, I feel if you will put it in a way that can come across not as preachy or not boring or anything. I mean, I try not, maybe people will still be bored, but I'll try my best to do that. I think those are the only boxes you want to tick.
Hello, ma'am. This side. My question is that how you treat with the people who reject your movie earlier, like you said some of people refuses your movie before the making, and then your movie got success, and then they are saying you that it's good or whatever. So how do you deal with them in future?
Very politely say, I can now produce my own film.
No, it's just like that there are many contradictions with them, that he's not working with me or she's not working with me in this movie, and this movie is got success, and then they are coming to us for for the next product. Then how you treat with them, the same as you treated with before, and so
the way I treat them?
Yeah.
I treat them very politely. There's no reason. I mean, I also understand their point of view that this could have been a failure for them. They're putting their money, so I can't hold someone like, you did not do this for me, so now I'm going to take revenge. No, I think that's how.
It's not about revenge, ma'am. It's just like they ignore us, and then they are coming back to us with the.
That's the way of life. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. As far as I only want to focus on what I want to do next and how will that be possible. And that's where my focus is. I'm not worrying about if it was just said in jest and in fun that acha now we want to work more fun. I wish they did
We
it.
have one last question. We don't have one.
Gauri, I don't have a question, I have a compliment. I saw your movie English in English and I want to thank you for all that you did for the sari industry in this country. I remember friends like Laila Tyabji and Jasleen Damija and all the sari wearing types like Jaya Jetli. We actually got up and applauded privately on social media among ourselves and we said, finally we have the weaving industry to be grateful to a girl who made this movie and it was superb. Thank you.
Thank you.